I never imagined that a single act of kindness could unravel an empire built on lies and betrayal. My name is Benjamin, and for as long as I can remember, I have been the outlier in our family, someone who chose to follow his own path rather than succumbing to the ruthless family enterprise that my brother Noah so proudly controls. Growing up, I watched in silence as Noah rose to power, inheriting our father's legacy only to twist it into a monument of greed and cruelty. While Noah flaunted his wealth and boasted about every successful transaction, I quietly labored to build a life founded on integrity, compassion, and a deep-seated belief in doing what is right. I prided myself on being the one who always looked out for others, even if it meant standing alone against those who valued power over people. It was Friday evening, and the city downtown was bathed in the soft glow of neon lights and the hum of urban life. My family had planned one of our routine outings, a dinner at an upscale restaurant in the heart of the city, a setting that Noah often used to parade his accomplishments. That night, as I sat at a table surrounded by my parents, Noah, his wife Isabella, and their daughter Hazel, I noticed something that would change the course of the evening. Through the large front window of the restaurant, I spotted an elderly man sitting alone on a bench outside. The chill of the evening wrapped around him as he huddled near a small cart that contained all his worldly possessions, his frail frame shivering against the cold. My heart clenched at the sight. Here was a man who, despite having so little, carried himself with a quiet dignity that spoke of years of resilience. I remembered the countless times when I, too, had been overlooked and belittled by those who were supposed to care. Without a moment's hesitation, I discreetly signaled to our server and asked if it would be possible to add an extra meal to our order, a simple soup of the day and a sandwich, packed to go for the elderly man. I wanted to extend a small act of kindness, a gesture that I believed could restore a bit of warmth to a soul that had been forgotten by society. As the packaged meal was delivered, I could hear Noah's derisive laughter cut through the ambient chatter of the restaurant. Leaning back in his chair with that trademark smug smirk, he called out loud enough for nearby tables to overhear. "Isn't it funny how you always try to play the savior, Benjamin? Trying to prove that you're some kind of saint, as if you're better than the rest of us." His words dripped with condescension, and I felt a familiar surge of anger and hurt welling up inside me. Isabella, seated next to him, nodded in agreement, her laughter sharp and rehearsed, while little Hazel watched with wide, confused eyes that seemed too mature for her tender age. I excused myself from the table and stepped outside, my footsteps echoing softly on the pavement. The cool night air did little to ease the burning sting of his mockery, yet I pressed on, determined not to let his words distract me from what I knew was right. I approached the elderly man slowly, offering him the food with a gentle smile that belied the turmoil inside. His eyes, tired and sorrowful, lit up as he accepted the meal. "Thank you, young man," he murmured, his voice quivering with gratitude. "You have no idea how much kindness like this means to me." I handed him the neatly wrapped meal, along with a folded napkin that had been used to salvage half of his sandwich. In that small, silent exchange, I felt a surge of fulfillment, a reaffirmation that even the smallest act of compassion could ripple out into something much larger. Inside the restaurant, the atmosphere remained charged with tension. As I returned to my table, I could still hear Noah's mocking tone as he resumed regaling everyone with tales of his latest business triumph. My parents, ever eager to lavish praise on Noah, joined in with their shallow compliments, completely oblivious to the quiet dignity of my gesture. Their words, laced with approval for Noah and disdain for what they perceived as my futile charity, cut deep into me. I focused on Hazel, who had reverted to her earlier silence. her eyes following every movement as if she were trying to understand a complex puzzle that adults often muddle with their selfish priorities. That night, as the restaurant lights dimmed and our family eventually dispersed into the cool night, I could hardly shake the feeling that something was terribly amiss. For weeks, I had been quietly gathering evidence regarding Noah's management of the family business, a legacy passed down from our father, but now tarnished by Noah's unscrupulous practices. Through careful investigation, I had uncovered discrepancies in financial records, dubious transactions funneled into offshore accounts, and a labyrinth of shell companies designed to conceal his systematic theft of millions from the very people who had built the company with our father. It was a secret that I had harbored with a heavy heart, knowing that exposing Noah would not only serve as a form of retribution for his personal mockery of my compassion, but also restore justice to our father's legacy. In the days that followed that fateful Friday, I pored over documents, cross-referenced bank statements, and assembled a trove of evidence that painted a damning picture of Noah's misdeeds. I organized everything into 3 meticulously labeled folders. One for the fraudulent financial transactions, another containing forged documents and misleading reports, and a final folder that held police reports and witness testimonies. Every page, every receipt, and every transaction was a piece of the puzzle that Noah had so carefully constructed to hide his greed. The decisive moment came on a Tuesday morning when I was summoned to a board meeting of our family corporation, a meeting that Noah had insisted I attend. I arrived at the sleek, modern conference room of the company headquarters well before the scheduled time, my heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and dread. I sat in silence, clutching the folders that contained the evidence, while the room slowly filled with board members whose expressions ranged from indifferent to subtly anxious. The air was thick with tension as we awaited Noah's entrance. At exactly 8:55 a.m., the door opened and Noah strode in, Isabella at his side, with a confident smile that had long since become a mask for his deceit. He greeted everyone with his customary charm, launching into a rehearsed monologue about future expansions and growth projections. I listened intently, my pulse quickening as I awaited the moment to speak. After 15 minutes of Noah's self-important droning, I cleared my throat and interjected, "I believe it is time we review the financial transactions of the past 3 years before we proceed with any further discussion of expansion." I passed out copies of my first folder to each board member, and I watched as Noah's smug expression faltered for just a moment. His left eye twitched involuntarily, a subtle sign that his facade was beginning to crack. One board member, a stern man known for his unwavering integrity, leaned forward and asked in a measured tone, "Benjamin, can you explain what these documents indicate?" I met his gaze steadily and said, "These records detail systematic theft, money laundering, and the misappropriation of funds that have been funneled into personal accounts and shell companies under Noah's management." The room fell into a heavy silence, and I could sense the shock and growing anger among the board members. Noah attempted to interject, his voice unsteady as he mumbled, "I fulfilled my obligations. Our father would have understood the pressures of running this business." But I was relentless. I opened the second folder and began to read aloud a series of receipts, bank statements, and forged contracts that irrefutably linked Noah to fraudulent activities spanning several years. As I spoke, the board members exchanged murmurs, their eyes fixed on Noah with a mixture of disbelief and indignation. Then I presented the final folder, a collection of police reports and witness statements, including a particularly damning video clip of Noah ridiculing elderly employees while manipulating their retirement benefits. The silence that followed was deafening, and for the first time, Noah's carefully constructed empire of lies began to crumble before our very eyes. One board member, his voice trembling with controlled fury, declared, "Noah, your actions have not only betrayed the trust of this board, but have also desecrated our father's legacy. We have no choice but to initiate legal proceedings immediately." In that moment, I felt a surge of vindication mixed with a profound sadness. I had spent years quietly suffering under Noah's taunts, his mockery of my acts of kindness, and the relentless cruelty that had defined our family relationships. Now, as the board moved to strip Noah of his control over the company, I knew that karma had finally caught up with him. Within days, news of the scandal spread like wildfire through the local media. Headlines screamed of fraud, embezzlement, and betrayal. Noah's fortune evaporated, his reputation lay in ruins, and he was soon incarcerated for a 15-year sentence that seemed to serve as poetic justice for his years of deceit. Meanwhile, my actions had far-reaching consequences. Isabella, who had once defended Noah's every move, filed for divorce, and the board, reborn under a mantle of integrity, vowed to rebuild the company on principles of transparency and accountability. I received messages of gratitude from former employees, colleagues, and even strangers who had followed the unfolding drama online. One message that touched me deeply came from the elderly man I had helped that fateful Friday. He wrote, "Benjamin, you showed me a kindness that restored my faith in humanity. You have a heart that values decency over wealth, and for that, I thank you." His words, simple and sincere, reminded me that even in a world corrupted by greed, compassion could still spark change. In the weeks that followed, as I worked tirelessly to assist the board in reconstructing our father's legacy, I continued to feel the bittersweet sting of family betrayal. Our mother, Cora, who had long suffered in silence under the weight of our father's and Noah's misdeeds, sent me a tearful text early one morning. "Please, Benjamin, think of Hazel. She deserves a future free from the shadow of your brother's greed." Her plea was a reminder that beneath the layers of corporate scandal and personal retribution, real lives were affected. Lives of innocent children and those who had always believed in the possibility of redemption. I also took steps to ensure that the damage caused by Noah's actions would not continue unchecked. I established a charitable foundation in honor of one of the elderly employees whose pension had been manipulated, a foundation dedicated to supporting retired workers and promoting ethical business practices. I arranged for Hazel, who had silently borne the weight of our family's dysfunction, to attend a prestigious art school with a fully funded scholarship through a trust fund I had helped set up. Each of these steps, though small in the grand scheme, felt like a victory, a way to rebuild not only the shattered remnants of our family legacy, but also to foster hope for a better future. Yet, as I look back on these tumultuous events, I realize that the true lesson lies in the power of compassion and integrity. While Noah mocked my acts of kindness, dismissing them as mere attempts to buy a personality, karma ensured that every receipt, every fraudulent transaction he thought he could dodge, was laid bare for all to see. His downfall, his imprisonment, and the ruin of his fortune are a testament to the fact that no one can escape the consequences of their actions indefinitely. I learned that true strength is found in standing up for what is right, even when it means standing alone against those who claim to be family. As I sit here in the quiet aftermath of the board meeting, my heart is heavy with the cost of our family's betrayal. Yet I am buoyed by a sense of justice and renewal. The organization is slowly healing, and the board is working tirelessly to restore trust and fairness. I often think of the elderly man, now a respected member of the board, whose quiet dignity and simple gratitude serve as a reminder that kindness is its own reward. His life, once overlooked, has been given a new purpose through our collective actions. I share my story not to boast about the downfall of my brother, but to illustrate a fundamental truth, that every act of cruelty, every betrayal, will eventually be met with its due retribution. I invite you, dear reader, to reflect on your own experiences of injustice and to consider how acts of kindness, however small, can ignite a chain reaction of positive change. Have you ever taken a stand when it felt like the whole world was against you? Have you ever witnessed someone's true nature revealed by the very compassion they scorned? I would love to hear your stories, your struggles, and your triumphs in the face of adversity. As for Noah, his empire has crumbled, and he now spends his days in prison, haunted by the choices he made. His downfall is a stark reminder that greed and cruelty are ultimately unsustainable. My journey, on the other hand, is only just beginning. I have learned that the path to redemption is paved with integrity, empathy, and the courage to defy the expectations of those who would have us live in the shadow of their own vanity. I stand at this crossroads with a heart both heavy and hopeful, knowing that while the wounds of the past may never fully heal, they can serve as the foundation for a brighter future. The choices we make define us, not the fleeting approval of those who judge us by superficial measures of success. I have chosen to build a life that honors my values, a life that is dedicated to justice, compassion, and accountability. As my new beginning, I feel a profound mix of relief and lingering sorrow. Relief that the truth has finally been revealed, and justice, in its own inevitable way, has caught up with my brother Noah, who now spends his days in prison consumed by regret and isolation, and sorrow for the shattered family that once should have supported us all. I have learned that true strength comes not from wealth or power, but from integrity, compassion, and the courage to stand alone against deception. While I carry the scars of betrayal, I also hold on to the knowledge that every cruel act eventually unravels, leaving only the possibility for redemption and renewal. The path I've chosen, though steeped in personal sacrifice, has allowed me to rebuild my life on my own terms, turning every bitter memory into a stepping stone toward a future where kindness and accountability reign. Yet, as I look into the uncertain horizon, I know this is not the end, but only a new chapter, one where the lessons of our past continue to shape a more honest and compassionate tomorrow. Have you ever faced betrayal and found the strength to rise above it? Share your own stories of overcoming cruelty and reclaiming your worth. Together, we can create a community where our scars become symbols of resilience, and every act of kindness helps light the way forward. What does true justice mean to you, and how have your own experiences of hardship transformed your life? Let's talk, and let our shared truths inspire a future built on integrity and hope.